Hey guys, my name is Yash and I'm the founder of CodeReal. In this video, we're going to be learning Python programming in under 90 minutes. To make the most out of this video, make sure you take some notes while you watch this video. At the same time, if you don't understand a certain section, make sure you go back and watch it again. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments, like this video, share this video, and definitely subscribe to CodeReal because we're going to be adding so many more videos in addition to this one to make your programming journey easy and extremely effective. Also, I've added a lot of resources that have been used in this video in the description. So make sure before you start off, just download those resources. Nevertheless, if you do not have those resources, you can still code and code along and follow this video. So all the best and let's just get into it.
Alright guys, so the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up our coding environment. So the first thing you want to do is just go to Google, and once you reach google.com, what you want to do is you simply want to search for something like Python and just press enter. Once you type Python, press enter, you'll see a bunch of links at the top, and then just go to the bottom, scroll down and find the link that says www.python.org. Welcome to python.org. So let's just click on that. You'll see that this new page opens up. Now on this page, what you want to do is just hover on downloads and then download the latest version for your system. So for example, I'm using Mac OS, so I need to download the version for Mac OS. But if you're using Windows, then all you want to do is simply click on Windows and then download the latest Python 3 release for Windows, right? So since I'm using Mac OS, I'm just going to go to downloads, Mac OS, and then latest Python 3 release for Mac OS. Once I click on that, it takes me somewhere on a new page. I'll scroll down, and after scrolling down, you'll see there's a bunch of installers here. So here you can see that there's a Mac OS installer and there are a bunch of Windows installers. So usually you might want to actually just go for the recommended installers. In this case, for Windows, you should go for the one at the bottom. And for Mac OS, you should go for the Mac OS 64-bit universal installer. This works for Macs with M1 chips as well as Intel chips. So you don't need to worry about that. So let's just click on that. And we have our Python downloaded right here, the Python file downloaded right here. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to go ahead to Google again, and you want to type PyCharm, which is not CHAROM, but just CHARM, yeah, which is our choice of IDE. Now, an IDE is nothing but an integrated development environment. It is basically the software on which you are going to be coding, right? It's basically going to be a nice graphical software. It's going to give you a nice window, which is going to help you code effectively and understand code better, as well as structure it in a much better way. So we're going to be using PyCharm. I'll just click on the first link, which is from JetBrains. And then here, you just want to click on not for the professional developers, you simply want to click on download up here. Once you click on download up there, you can see that there are two versions that you can download. You can download a professional version or you can download a community version. So we don't really want to download the professional version because you're going to have to do a bunch of payments with the professional version, and you don't require that right now. If you're a Windows user, just click on Windows. You would actually already be on the Windows tab if you're a Windows user, and you simply want to download the community version for Windows. And for Mac OS, you want to go ahead and download the community version for Mac OS. But now in Mac OS, there are two types of Macs. There are Intel Macs as well as there are Apple Silicon or M1 Macs. So if you have the newer M1 Mac, just click on Apple Silicon and you'll have the software downloaded right there. But since my Mac is still an Intel Mac, I'm just going to go back and download the Intel DMG file. Once I download that, it'll just start downloading. Once I click on that, it'll just start downloading. And since I already have this, I'm really not going to download it anymore. Once you download that, all you want to do is double click on both of those files. So first off, let's just go with Python. So the first file you should download is Python. Just click on your Python installer, continue, agree, and then click on install and it'll be done, right? Since I already have Python, I'm really not going to install this, but you should go ahead and click on the install button. At the same time with PyCharm, you want to do the exact same thing. So this is about setting up our IDE or our environment for Python. Once this is done, once you've downloaded and installed all of your files, that is the Python file first, and then your PyCharm file, you simply want to go to your applications and open up the PyCharm using the PyCharm icon. And once you open it up using the PyCharm icon, you'll see a really cool creative, some cool PyCharm artwork here, which is the loading screen, which will eventually open up your project. So we're going to be working on a certain project right here. If you want to follow along, the link to this particular PyCharm project is going to be given in the description of this video. So just go ahead and download that. And then once you've downloaded that, you simply want to go to File in your PyCharm window. So on the top left, you'll see File, and then just Open. Once you've downloaded it, just click on Open. Go ahead and select your the downloaded PyCharm folder from your downloads folder. And then once you click on Open, it's just going to open up this particular project. So guys, that's basically about our project setup. Let's take a look at what is PyCharm and how we're actually going to be using PyCharm through the course. We'll take a look at all the windows that come here in the next slide. Alright guys, so I hope your PyCharm and your Python coding environment has been set up on your computer. If it hasn't been set up, you can definitely ask me questions in the comments, and I'll also be linking some resources over the internet to help you set it up a little more. You can find them in the video description. Now, I've just opened up my PyCharm. This is what it looks like. Once you click on, I obviously have the coding file here, but once you click on the open button, for example, it takes you to your file system. Now here you need to navigate to where you've actually saved or stored this project. So here I'm simply going to go to, well, this folder called PyCharm projects, where this project must have been stored, and this is where it is. So just going to double click on that. And now here I've got another folder called Python in 1 hour, and this is the folder that this is my project folder. So I'm just going to double click on this project folder and then click on Open. Once I click on Open, you can see that my PyCharm opens up the whole project folder. So once my PyCharm has opened up this project folder, you can see a lot of tools and a lot of buttons and a lot of text written here, but you really don't need to be intimidated by that, because all of this is just going to be super second nature to you in 1 hour. So first off, let's just take a look at this left hand side part. Here you need to see that you've got your folder, which is Python in 1 hour. After that, you've got a folder called VENV, which is virtual environment. We are really not going to touch that right now. We'll do this in some of the more advanced videos. And then you've got this file called the main.py file. Now, what you need to know is that on PyCharm, whenever you run a project, or even in Python, usually the main.py file is where your main project code base is written. So a project can have many different Python files, and they're all at the end of the day going to be connected to this main.py file. Now, what you need to know is that, long story short, you're basically going to be writing all of your project code inside this main.py file. And I've given a bunch of comments here in this main.py file, which are going to help you follow along with this video and do the exercises with me. Now, once we're done with this, let's talk about what's up here. And for some of you in PyCharm, you'll have this green button somewhere here on line number 1, right? So this green play button basically allows you to run your program or execute your program, right? And just a small tip before we get started, as I said in the introduction video, make sure that you're learning Python just as if you'd learn any other humanly spoken language. The only difference is that by learning Python, you're going to be learning how to speak to a computer instead of a human. So just learn it in that way. It's not complicated at all. In fact, it's one of the easiest languages to learn. So it's going to be a breeze for you. All right. Now let's actually get our hands dirty in Python. So the very first thing that every programmer does while learning a programming language is display the words hello world. If you guys have learned a programming language before this, you guys might know this. So to display any kind of message or value, we use this command or function called the print function. So let's get to exercise 1.1 from section 1. right? There's a note that says anything you type within the double quotes or single quotes will be displayed as it is. So basically what happens here is when I type print, just like that, with these two curved brackets. So let me just zoom into that. Yeah. So if I write this with these two curved brackets, and within these two curved brackets, whatever I write within double quotes or single quotes allows me to display any message that I want. So first off, let me just display hello world, just like that. And then I'm going to click on the run button right here. So once I click on the run button, you can see that a new window opens up on the bottom of the screen, which says hello world. So your program has successfully executed when it says process finished with exit code 0. This means your program has successfully executed, and you'll definitely see the output of your program written right here or displayed right here. So the program that you write or the code that you write is the input, because you're giving something, some kind of an instruction to the computer. And when you execute it or run it, the result of this code or the result of this execution is called the output. So here, the result of this print hello world is this message being displayed hello world. All right, let's go ahead and do exercise 1.2, which is, again about printing something. So here we want to print out Python is cool with an exclamation mark using the print command. So that's again pretty easy. As I said, you simply want to write print and then these two curved brackets. Well, curved brackets are also called parentheses in programming. So let's just refer to the curved brackets as parentheses. So inside the parentheses, you want to use double quotes and type Python is cool. Let's get rid of the typos. Yeah, right there. And then let's click on run. Once you click on run, you can see that first this print command is executed. That is, the print hello world command is executed, after which the print Python is cool command is executed. What does this mean? This means that Python executes its code in a top-down fashion, or it executes its code from the first line to the last line in your coding file, right? And that's why in the sequence, line number 6 comes before line number 10, and hence the output for line number 6 will appear before the output for line number 10. All right, so I hope that's pretty clear. Just to give you a quick example, if I write another print command here on line number 11, and let's use single quotes this time. And let me type again, this is a message written within single quotes. All right, so we're printing the message. This is a message written within single quotes, and when I click on run again, you can see that the text, this is a message written within single quotes, is the third output, because line number 11 comes after line number 10. Yeah, so that shows us that Python sequentially executes code, or executes code in a sequence, and also displays the output in that exact sequence. Now, another thing that you need to know, and a lot of students make mistakes in this, is that if you want to use the print statement and you start with a double quote, but you end with a single quote, Python is going to give you some kind of an error. So let's just take a look at that for a second before we move on. And when I click on run, it says EOL with scanning string literal, and it tells you that it's a syntax error. Well, obviously this looks pretty scary, but you don't really need to worry about it, because syntax error basically means that you have not followed the rules of writing Python. So a syntax error means there is an issue with the way you've written it. So when we speak in English or any other language, there are rules of speaking and writing that language. And if you do not follow those rules, the person in front of you is probably not going to understand what you're trying to say. And the same goes with Python, right? If you don't follow the syntax of the Python language, the interpreter or your IDE, that is PyCharm, or your computer is actually not going to understand what you're trying to ask it, or what are you trying to, what kind of a task are you giving it to do. In this case, you're asking your computer to print some kind of a message, but you start it with a double quote and end it with a single quote, and that is against the rules of Python. So if you start with a double quote, you need to end with a double quote, and you can see that that red underline has disappeared. When I click on run, again, it does display hello world. And if you started with a single quote, you need to end it with a single quote. So when I click on run, we still don't get any error. So we have fixed the syntax error. Now, let's just zoom out for a second and move on to section 2. So, section 2 is about variables. Now, in this case, for variables, we're going to quickly switch to GoodNotes, which is a software that I'm going to be using to explain the concept of variables to you guys. Alright guys, so let's talk about variables in Python. This is a very, very important topic. So before we get into the technical stuff, let's just imagine a wardrobe. So let's just imagine that this thing that you see right here is a wardrobe and it has a lot of shelves or compartments. All right. In this wardrobe, we have 3 particular compartments in which we've stored some stuff, right? We've stored about 50 books in this particular compartment. We have stored 20 shoes in this particular compartment, and we have stored 10 games in this particular compartment. So what do we observe about this? We have arranged these things at particular locations in our wardrobe or our cupboard. Yes, we've stored these at a particular location and we've also named those locations. So just like this, in programming, your computer stores values. Your computer stores values like 50, 10, 20, some kind of text, some kind of images in its own memory, which is just like your wardrobe at home, which has a lot of compartments. And these small compartments are given some kind of a name, right? So for example, this compartment right here has been given the name books and it stores the value 50. This compartment right here has been given the name shoes and it stores the value 20. And this compartment right here has been given the name games and it stores the value 10. So to give a more technical definition about variables, a variable is a named memory location that stores some kind of a value. And as you know, the name variable has the word vary in it. And vary means the value of this particular storage location in your memory can change from time to time in the program. And you as the programmer are the one who's going to actually make that value change as and when you want it, obviously. So that is all about variables. So if we would actually write some kind of a variable in Python, just like you learned, we would basically write the name of the variable. So something like, let's say, I want to write age. So I've got a variable called age, and I'm going to make it equal to, let's say, 23. That's my age, right? So now I have a variable called age, which stores the number 23. So if we put this in our wardrobe or our computer's memory right here, it could be stored somewhere here. So I've got a variable called age, and this compartment stores the value 23. So if I simply type the code print age, what the computer is going to do is it's going to execute the print command, and it's going to think that, all right, the programmer wants me to display something. The programmer wants me to display something, but what does the programmer want the computer to display? The programmer wants the computer to display the value stored at the memory location, which is called age or which is named age. So your program will execute print. It's like, okay, I want to display something. And what's the something? You want to display whatever is stored inside the memory location named age. So your final output should be 23 in this case. So let's get into PyCharm and explore this. Alright guys, so in the previous sections, we saw what are variables conceptually. Now let's put those concepts into practice. So as you see on the screen, our section 2 is about variables, and the definition is that variables are named memory locations that store some kind of data or information or value. Now, the first thing is creating variables and printing their values. So let's see how to actually create variables and display their values. The first exercise is to create 4 variables: name, age, country, and display their values using the print function or the print command. Let's take a look at how to do this. So I'm going to create the first variable, which is name. I'm going to make that equal to, let's say, Yash, which is my name. Next, I'm going to make a variable called age, and I'm going to make that equal to 23, which is my age again. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called country, and I'm going to write my country, which is India. And finally, what you want to do is you want to display the value stored inside these variables. So what I want you to observe is that I've used double quotes around all the text that I've written. That is because Python requires you syntactically to enclose any kind of text or characters or symbols within double quotes if you want to display them as they are. In this case, if I do not put these double quotes, then it's going to definitely give me this red line indicating that this particular line is going to throw an error. And if I run it right here, it says trace back most recent call, blah, 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 blah. And then it says that it has thrown a name error. It says name Yash is not defined. So what Python does is it kind of tries to look for the variable which is called Yash inside the computer's memory. And since we've not created a variable called Yash, it's actually going to throw an error because it does not know where to find it. And since this is actually not a variable, we want to give this particular string or this particular text as a value to the variable name. We are going to put this within double quotes or single quotes. So that's why name equals Yash within double quotes, age equals 23, which is the number, and country equals India within double quotes, since that's some kind of text. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to use the print function to print name on the first line, then print age on the second line, and finally print country on the third line. And when I click on run, our error goes away, and then it prints out Yash, 23 and India. So it prints out the value stored inside these variables. At the same time, a lot of people make this really common mistake of using variable names, like printing variable names, but using double quotes to print those variables, right? So if I print country within double quotes or single quotes and I run this, it's actually just going to print the text country, and it's not going to print the value stored inside the variable country. So you need to make sure that that is something that you're doing, because if you use these double quotes, then you're actually not printing the value of the variable. You're actually just printing that text which is within the double quotes. So to print the value inside a variable, you simply want to use the variable name, that is country, without any kind of double quotes or single quotes. And then once we run that, we get the value stored inside the variable country, which is India, right here in the output again. Perfect. So that was all about variables. Let's take a look at how can we print variables in different ways in a more custom manner to form some sentences. So this brings us to section 3. In section 3, we're going to be talking about printing and displaying values of variables with some text. So now we're going to be putting some kind of custom text in our print statements, and we're going to attach some variables to this custom text. So let's take a look at section 3.1, which is using one variable. So we're just going to be using one variable in our sentence that we want to print. Now, let's say that you want to print the sentence, name of the animal is tiger. And in this case, you want to create a variable named animal and set its value to tiger. So let's do that first. So I'm going to create a variable named animal equals, within double quotes, Tiger, tiger. That's it. Now, there's two methods to do this. So under the method one comment right here, I'm going to use the first method of doing this. So in method one, it says we want to use print and then a comma within its parentheses. So let's take a look at how to do that. Simply write print. Then let's take a look at the text here. We know that we want to print out name of the animal is colon and then tiger, which is the value of our variable right here. So first off, inside the print statement, I'm just going to put some text. Within double quotes, I'll write name of the animal is, and then I'll also put a colon, just because I want to display the colon. That's the exercise. And when I click on run, it shows in the output screen that name of the animal is with that colon. Now what we want to do is we want to attach the value stored inside this variable, which is tiger. So what I do is after these double quotes right here, let me just zoom in. After these double quotes right here, I simply press the comma and then I write the name of the variable in which the animal is stored. In this case, the name of the variable is animal. And once you do that, the value inside the variable animal is simply going to be attached to this text and it's going to be displayed here in the output. So let's take a look at it. When I click on run, that's exactly what happens. So the text that we wrote within double quotes, that is name of the animal is, and then the colon, it gets attached to the value stored inside the variable animal, which is tiger. So the name of the animal is tiger. But why do we do it in this way and not just write name of the animal is tiger, just like that, and just remove all of this complicated code? We don't do it in this way because sometime in the program you might want to change this whole text altogether, and in this case you might just want to change the value tiger, which is to a different animal, or to the name of a different animal. In this case, what you would want to do is simply put a comma, write the name of the variable, and then just change the value of the variable. So let's say I change the name of the animal from tiger to lion, and I'll run that. Whoops. Yeah. So when I run that, it simply displays name of the animal is lion. If I change this to something like cheetah and I run it, again, it displays name of the animal is cheetah. So now our program is slightly more dynamic, slightly more custom, and this is pretty good. So if you've come this far, it's amazing, and I hope everything's pretty smooth on the programming end. Let's go to the next method, which is called concatenation. So concatenation again essentially means joining two things, right? So when you join two things together in programming, we call it concatenation. So let's concatenate this particular text and the value of this variable to finally create our sentence that is name of the animal is cheetah, or complete the task basically. So I'm simply going to write print again with the parentheses within double quotes, name of the animal is colon. And then in concatenation, you simply use the plus symbol. So you want to add or join this particular text to the text stored inside the variable animal. So this text plus animal. And then now when you click on run, it basically prints the same thing again. So now if I change the value of this variable from cheetah to, let's say, elephant, yeah, and I run this, it says name of the animal is elephant. This is the output for line number 36, and this right here is the output for line number 38. So just like this, you can concatenate many variables in your string. Let's go to the next section, which is section 3.2. And here we're going to be using multiple variables with the print statement. So the exercise here is to display the sentence, Joanna is 18 and will be 19 next year. That's the sentence you want to display using the variables given below. So the name variable called name equals Joanna, and the age variable called age equals 18. And just observe that both of these are given as text, and we'll explore why is it given as text right now later in this video. So to create this particular sentence, I need to have a small code plan. Now I know that I have the value Joanna in a variable called name, and I have the value 18 in a variable called age. So name goes here and age goes here. And all of this is and will be 19 next year, and this full stop and all the spaces in between, they're all a part of the text. So let's see how can we actually fix this or actually build this. So first off, you need the name, that's Joanna, and it's stored in the variable called name. So I'm just going to write name right here. So print name, I'll execute this. Once I execute this, you can see that it displays Joanna. So that works. Now let's take this step by step. You want to join the word is, and don't forget these two spaces, right? So a space, the word is, and another space to this variable name. So plus within double quotes, space is space. And then you want to use another plus to join the value of the variable age, which is 18, which gives you this 18. So name is age plus, so to this whole thing, right? Let's just remove the plus and execute it to see what we've achieved. So Joanna is 18. So this much is done. And now you need this space and then the rest of the sentence, which is and will be 19 next year, full stop. So how to do this? Age plus within double quotes, space, and will be 19 next year, full stop. Yeah. Now, once that is done and I click on the run button, it says Joanna is 18 and will be 19 next year. And that is how we concatenated multiple variables that were storing some kind of text values with some more text and displayed it using the print function. So here I've given you guys an exercise which is to display the sentence Monday is a cold day, although the temperature on Tuesday was colder at 10 degrees. So you've got to use all of these variables to create the sentence and display it using the print function. It would be best to pause the video right now and go ahead and complete this exercise before you move ahead with the video. So let's take a look at this note about comments. So you've been seeing these things that are preceded by hashtags, right? So what you need to know is that anything preceded by a hashtag is considered to be a comment and is not a part of the code. And that's why it does not really execute with the code or give us any kind of error, because a comment is simply used to tell other people about your code. So I've used these comments to give you instructions about your exercise. They are not really a part of the code. They are actually ignored by PyCharm and Python. They are simply there so that you as a human can understand what the underlying code is actually doing. Or it's just a small note for you, or developers basically use it to tell them that, this is what I've done in this code block, or this is what I need to do later in the future for this code block. Moving ahead, let's talk about what are these hashtags and what are these comments. So a hashtag is a single line comment. So as you can see that for each new line, I'm using a different hashtag, but triple quotes like this. So anything enclosed within triple quotes allow you to add multi-line comments. So now you can see that right here I've put a sample multi-line comment. So I've put 3 opening triple quotes, written my multi-line comment, and then I've put 3 closing triple quotes to close that multi-line comment. Comments are important in order to give a description of the code blocks in your code. So make sure you are using comments for your own reference, or if someone else is going to read your code, they're going to be reading the comments that you write in your code and actually understand what you've done in the code. Now let's move on to section 4, which is data types. In data types, what you need to understand is that the word data types or the term data types actually has the answer in it. Data type is nothing but just some kind of data or some type of data. And in Python, we definitely do deal with different types of data, and it's extremely essential for you as a programmer to understand what are these types of data, because you're going to be coming across different types of data, you're going to be using them together, and you need to know how to use these data types together. So there are 2 main types of data in Python. I like to call them a numeric data type, data types which contain numbers, and text data types or sequential data types which contain some kind of text or some kind of characters or symbols. Now, as you see on the screen, we have 4 variables right here, A, B, C, and D. The first variable A has the value 10. The second variable B has the value 50.5. The third variable C has a value 30. But if you observe, it's within double quotes. So that means that 30 is actually some kind of text. And the fourth variable D is also has a value of 40, but you can see that the variable D is within single quotes. The value of variable D 40 is within single quotes. So that also makes it some kind of text in Python. But let's give these variables their own names in Python or their own data types. So A is actually an integer. And what you need to know is that in Python, any kind of number which is positive or negative but does not have a decimal is an integer. Yeah. So the whole number 10 is an integer. Minus 10 would also be an integer. But if you take a look at B, which is 50.5, this is called a float. Whoops. Right? So this is called a float. And floats in Python are basically positive or negative fractions. Yeah, any kind of number that has a decimal in it is called a float in Python. But if I remove this 0.5, this 50 actually becomes an integer because it does not have a decimal and it is a positive whole number. It could also be a negative whole number. So anyways, anything without a decimal is an integer, anything with a decimal is a float, or any number without a decimal is an integer, and any number with a decimal is a float. Moving ahead, anything in Python that is within double quotes or single quotes is called a string or str. Str is short for string, int is short for int, and just float is just float. Yeah, and anything within single quotes again is a string or str. So these are the four main data types in Python that we are going to be working with. Ahead in this video, we're going to be introducing the Boolean data type, but that is a conversation for some time from now. So now let's talk about the type function in section 4.1. Now, displaying the data types of all variables given in section 4. So we've got 4 variables and we want to display the data types of these variables. Now, as a person, I have told you that, A is an integer, B is a float, C is a string, and D is a string. But, we kind of need proof for this. So we're going to be printing out the type and then parentheses. Since type is a function, you're going to be adding some parentheses right after it. And inside this type function, you want to pass the variable A. And now when I run this, it says class int or int or integer. This means that the value stored inside variable A belongs to the integer class. All right. Similarly, if I just write the same thing for variable B and run it, it should say that the value stored inside variable B is of the data type float, or it belongs to the float class. Next, we'll print the type for variable C and run that. It says it belongs to the string class, as we correctly said, and print the type for variable D and click on run. It says, again, it just says string. So that belongs to the string class. So as we defined this earlier, C belongs to string, D belongs to string, A belongs to int, and B belongs to float. So just to give you a quick recap of variables, of data types, any number without a decimal is an integer. It could be positive or negative. Any number with a decimal that is positive or negative is called a float. Anything at all, be it a number or some kind of text or symbol, which is within double quotes or single quotes, is a string. All right. So from now on in the course, we're going to be referring to strings as strings, floats as floats, and integers as ints. Now, let's go to the next section, which is typecasting. Now, typecasting basically means molding one data type into a different data type. So for example, we've got a variable A here, which is an integer. Yeah, A is equal to 15. 15 is an integer. We know that already. To confirm, we can just print within double quotes A and then comma type of A. Yeah, the technique that we use to join two things using the print function. When I run that, it says A is of the class int or integer. So A is an integer. Now, what do I want to do here? I want to convert A into a float data type. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to write A equals to float of 15. So this means that you are forcing Python, or you're asking Python to convert the value 15, which is an integer value, to a float value. And now if I print A and I run this, it's actually going to print 15.0. Yeah. So before I convert A, for example, if I write print A right here and I run this, it says 15. Then we have printed the type of A, which is int. And then we've converted A into a float on line number 83. And we've printed the value of the converted variable A, which is 15.0. So as we understood earlier, any number with a decimal is a float value. So this basically proves that. So now if I print the type of A and I run it just like that, you can see that it says A is now a class float, or it belongs to the float class, or it is a float value. Next, let's go to B and take a look at how to convert this to an integer. So similarly, just like we converted an integer to a float using the float function right here, the float typecast, we are simply going to write B equals. So let me just print out B. Then I'll print out the type of B so that we know what happens before the conversion. Now we'll convert it. So we'll write B equals int of, what's that value? 30.5. Yeah. And then we'll print the type of B again. So first we're printing the value of B here to see if it actually prints 30.5. Then we're printing the type of the value inside B. So it should tell us whether it's an int or a float, or it should ideally tell us it's a float. Then we are changing the value of the variable B into an integer value by putting it around an integer typecast. And finally, we're printing the type of value B to make sure that it has actually been converted into an int. Now, when I run this, you can see that first, the value of variable B 30.5 has been displayed. Cool. Then it says that variable B is actually a float. And then after that, it prints the type of B, which is an integer. So we have basically created, or we have converted variable B, which was a float, into an integer. Now, let's move on to the next one, which is C. So you've got a number 60, this is an integer. You want to convert this into a string. So do you remember how we said that a string is also called str? Well, the typecast for a string is the str function. So if I write C equals str60, and then I print C and I print type of C, it should tell me that C is 60 and C is a string now. So here our C is an integer, then our C is being converted into a string, and finally we're printing the value of C and printing the data type of C. Finally, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using these variables to, kind of with the print function, and we're going to be using typecasting inside the print function to create much more complex phrases or sentences inside the print function. So let's take a look at the first level. The first level is display the equation 8 plus 8 equals 16 using the variables given below. So we've got A equals 8, B equals 8, C equals 16. So to do this, I'm simply going to write print 8 plus 8, right? A plus A equals C. Ideally, this is what should happen, right? And when I click on run, it says syntax error. Expression cannot contain assignment. Perhaps you meant a double equal to. Well, double equal to is something that we'll take up later in the video, but this thing is incorrect. Yeah, even if I put this within double quotes, it's not going to give me the desired output. It's simply just going to display A plus A equals C, or A plus B equals C. That's exactly what it's going to do. So what do we do to get these values and exactly display this particular phrase? To do this, we simply want to print out, number one, we want to print out the value of A. So we're not going to put that in double quotes. Then you want to join it with a string plus. Then you want to join this string plus with the value of the variable B. Then you want to join this whole thing with a string equal to, and you want to join this whole thing with the value of variable C. All right, this looks much better, but is it really going to work? Let's run that. And it says type error, unsupported operand types for the plus symbol, int and str. So basically what this means is that Python does not allow you to join an integer variable with some kind of string data or a string variable using the plus symbol. So in this case, what you want to do is you want to typecast variable a into a string, because according to the syntax of Python or the rules of Python, only strings can be joined with other strings using the plus symbol. So if I write str_a, convert a into a string, then convert str_b, I convert b into a string, and then convert c into a string, I basically have a string of the value 8 plus, which is being joined to this string plus, being joined to string of the value b, which is again 8, which is being joined to the string of equal to, the symbol equal to, and that is being joined to the string version of the value c, which is 16. So now when I click on run, it says 8 plus 8 equals 16. But you can see that this is pretty spaced out. This means that we've got a space before the plus, after the plus, before the equal to, and after the equal to. So that's pretty simple. You just want to add it here within your double quotes for plus and equal to. And when you click on run, it's simply going to display 8 plus 8 equals 16, just as it is asked in the task or the question. Let's go to level 2 now. So in level 2, it says display the equation 9 taken 18 times equals 16, or 9 multiplied by 18 equals 16. So what you want to do is you want to display this using the variables given below. Now, in the previous example, we were given 3 variables. We were given A, B, and C. Yeah, with A being 8, B being 8, and C being 16. So we had the answer. We had everything was pretty straightforward. But now we've just been given 2 variables, and it says we need to display 9 taken 18 times equals 162. So let's see how we can do this. And we're just going to be using some simple maths here as well. So I'm first off going to print out, 9 plus, within double quotes, x plus b. So 9 taken 18 times, or 9 multiplied by 18 is sorted kind of right now. Then you want to use the equal to symbol, and you want this to be equal to the value 162. So now there's 2 things you could do. You could either just write 162 like this, which would really not be an ideal way, or you could just put some brackets here, and inside the brackets or parentheses, you could write a multiplied by b. So remember that in programming, the star or the asterisk is used to multiply 2 variables. So 9 multiplied by 18 equals 162, and this particular expression right here is going to give you the number 162. So let's run this and see what happens. It says, okay, type error, unsupported operand types for plus, int, and string. Of course, because a is an int, b is an int, and this whole thing is an int as well. So to join it to these 2 strings using the plus symbol, we need to convert a into a string. Then we need to convert b into a string. And finally, we need to convert the answer or the answer of this expression to a string. Since we've already put it inside a bracket, you could simply add an str here. And then when you run it, you can see that it says 9x18, or 9 multiplied by 18 equals 162. Let's just space that out so that it looks good. And run that, and now it says 9x18 equals 162, which is the desired output. So that is done. That was level 2. Now, let's take a look at level 3. So level 3 says display the string 9 taken 18 times is 162 using the variables given in level 2. So again, this is pretty simple. You want to use the same variables a and b given here on lines number 104 and 105, and you want to use the same expression that's right here to get this 162. So let's just get done with this. So you want to print a, which is 9, then you want to add it to the word taken, 9 taken, then you want to add it to the variable b, which is 18, lowercase b, because just remember, Python is case sensitive. So a lowercase b is different from an uppercase b. So yeah, a lowercase b, since this variable name is a lowercase b. And then you again want to add a plus to join the words times is, and then plus a multiplied by b. Yeah, which gives us 162. So a plus this is equal to 162. We run it, we get an error. Whoops, we don't get an error, but yeah, we do get an error. It says int and str. Again, unsupported operand types. So here, convert a into a string, convert b into a string. Pretty simple. And finally, convert this whole thing into a string. And when you run this, it gives you 9 taken 18 times is 162. So now to format this, we need a space between 9 and taken, a space between taken and 18, and a space between is and 162. So just going to put a space before taken, after taken, after this. And now when I run this, we get the exact output that we want. Yeah. So that was pretty much about variables. That was pretty much about using variables with the print statement and typecasting, and obviously using variables in the print statement and typecasting them if they are integers or floats. So you typecast them into a string so that you can effectively print them with some different kind of text values. Now, in section 4.4, I've designed an exercise for you which helps you practice the skills that you've just learned. Make sure that you're completing this question. This question says, display the string 3, 7, and 9 are prime numbers using the variables given below. So you've got 3 variables. Make sure you pause this video right now and complete exercise 4.4 so that you can move ahead with all confidence and learn more about Python. So moving ahead into section 5, strings, that's strings. Let's talk about strings. So previously in the video, I told you that we will be talking about this data type called strings a lot, and strings are super important. Let's take a look at how are they important and what all can you do with these strings. So we've got a variable called word1 here, which is equal to Python within double quotes. This is a string. Just to make sure, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out the type of the variable word1. And now when I click on run, it says it's a class str. Okay, so we know that we're dealing with some kind of a string. Now, in section 5.1, we're going to be talking about how to access individual characters in a string. What does this mean? This means that how are you going to actually pinpoint the Y in Python, or the P in Python, or the H in Python, or the O or the R in Python? Yeah, so how are you actually going to do that? So let's take a look at these 5 tasks that we've designed here so that you can learn better. Task 1 says access and print the P in Python from the variable defined above. Now, before we go ahead, what you need to know is that in a string, each and every character here, each and every character has a certain position. For example, in this particular string Python, P is at position 0, Y is at position 1, T is at position 2, H is at position 3, O is at position 4, and N is at position 5. So always remember, strings, each and every character in a string is always positioned from the number 0. So positioning in programming usually starts from the number 0. Sometimes it differs from programming language to programming language, but usually in almost every programming language, positioning always starts from the number 0. So P is at position 0. Yeah, let's prove that. So access and print the P in Python from the variable given above. Yeah, so I'm simply going to print, and then I'm going to write the name of the variable, which is word1. This is where our string Python is stored. Then I'm going to use these square brackets, opening and closing square brackets. And within these square brackets, I'm going to write the position of the character that I want. So inside word1, I want to access position number 0. And when I click on run, it displays P as the character at position number 0. Yeah. Similarly, if I print word1 at position 1 and I run it, it's going to display the character Y. Yeah, because P is at 0, Y is at 1, then T is at 2, H is at 3, O is at 4, and N is at 5. So if I print word of 5, which is n, sorry, word 1 at position 5, and I run this, it prints out n. Yeah, so this is how you can actually calculate the position of the string, of the character on the string, and then access it using the print statement. Let's move on to the next task. The next task says that what we want to do is we want to access and print the last character of the variable defined above using the index of that character. So what is the last character here? The last character is n, and we've already done that, right? N is at position 5, and how did we do that? We simply went here and we checked P is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So n is at position 5. You simply want to come here to task 2, print, print word 1 at position 5, run that, and when you've got an n again. Perfect. Now it says access the h in Python using the variable defined above. Okay, the h. So p is at 0, y is at 1, t is at 2, h is at 3. Yeah, so h is at 3. So print word 1 at position 3 and run that. Once you run that, you can see that it displays the character h. Finally, not finally, but well, almost towards the end of this, access the last character using a negative index. So now what you need to know is that when you use these positive numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 to access these characters, you can also access a string from the back side. And when you access it from the back, you use negative indices or negative numbers. In this case, the last character of the string is going to be at the position -1, then the second last at -2, -3, -4, -5. Yeah, so let's take a look at that. Access the last character, so print word 1 at position -1, which should be the last character, which is n, and it displays n down here. If I display -2 and run it, it should display O, and that is what it does. Perfect. Now it says access the h in Python using a negative index on the variable defined above. So how are you going to actually access h using the variable defined above? To access h, you're again going to count from behind. So n is at -1, O is at -2, and h is at -3. So let's go down here and simply display h. So print word 1 at position -3, which is h. You run that and you get h right here. So that is how you've accessed h from the back of the string using a negative string index. Moving ahead to section 5.2, which is string slicing, and this is a very, very important section of our course. So here, what you need to know is that string slicing is basically like slicing a pizza, for example. So when you slice a pizza, you're slicing out parts of it, or you're making small parts of it, and then you're taking those parts out. So just like that, you can also take small controlled parts outside a string. You can select a small part of the string and not just one character. So let's take a look at how that happens. Task 1, slice the first word sum from the variable sentence. All right. So how can we do this? So in order to do this, guys, what you want to do is you simply want to go ahead and you want to print out the variable, the name of the variable first off, which is sentence. All right, I'm just going to zoom into this. Yeah, sentence. And then here you want to use the square brackets. Inside the square brackets, what you want to do is you simply want to put the starting index of the word or the position in the string that you want to slice out. In this case, I want to slice out S from sum and end slicing at E. So the S from sum starts at 0. So sentence at position 0, I'll run that. And yeah, I get the S from sum. Now I want to go from 0. So I want to slice from 0 to, so you use the colon, from 0 to E, right? So S is at 0, O is at 1, M is at 2, E is at 3. But what Python does is you need to slice still one position more than what you actually require. Yeah. So if I slice till position 4, which is the space, and I run it, I get the word sum. But if I slice till position 3, that is the index of the character 3, or of the character E inside sentence, and I run this, it only slices the first 3 characters. So you always need to slice one position more, right? So that is 0 to 4. You run that and it displays sum just like that. Task 2 is about slicing the word cold from the variable sentence. Okay, so where is cold? Alright, so cold is here. It's pretty far away. So let's count. Yeah, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. So C starts at position 33. So we'll print out sentence at position 33 and run this. When we run it, we get the C right here from the cold. Now we want to go from position 33 to 34, 35, 36. Yeah. But as I told you earlier, you need to take one extra position, which is till 37. So from 33 colon, that is to 37. And then when you run this, it says cold, just like that. So this is how you slice out small parts of a string that you might want. Let's move on to section 5.3 and understand the find function in strings. So as of now, you saw how we counted almost 33 characters, and that is really troublesome. That takes a lot of time, and that's actually pretty irritating when you are developing big applications and you need to slice something or work with bigger strings. So in this case, the find function allows you to find the index of the word you're looking for. In this case, I want to slice the word pleasant using the find function from our variable sentence, right? So pleasant comes right here, and obviously you can't expect someone to count from 0 till up here and then count further to the T, right? So I'm just going to be pretty smart and use the find function. So print sentence, and then to this sentence variable, I want to attach the function find. So sentence dot find. So inside sentence, you want to find the word pleasant. Yeah, this is what you want to find. So what it's going to do is it's going to look for the very first occurrence of the word pleasant, which comes here. And then it's going to give you the index value of its very first character, which is P. So print sentence dot find pleasant. And now when we run this, it says 55. This means that the word pleasant starts at position 55 on your string. Yeah. So if you want to slice out the word pleasant with the exclamation mark, it would be 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63. Yeah. So let's see if that actually works out. So print sentence.find pleasant. I'll just create a new one. Sentence at 55 colon. How much was that? 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63. 55 colon 63, and then you run it. When you run it, it gives you pleasant. But as we saw before, you actually need to go one step further and write 64 in order to include the exclamation mark. Now, when I click on run, it includes the exclamation mark, and we are very easily able to slice out the word pleasant. But again, you don't really want to manually count this whole word. You know that you want to start from the P and go till the end of the string. So there's a shortcut of doing it. You could simply print sentence at position 55, which is the P, and then colon. This basically means that you want to print all characters from position 55 till the end of the string. And when you run this, it prints out pleasant just like that. An even simpler way of doing this would be to print sentence and then at position, right? So now here you want to add the position 55. From where did we get 55? We got 55 using this block of code. So I'm just going to copy this block of code. Yeah. I'm going to put a colon here first. So from the position 55, which we got using this block of code, you're going to copy that. You're going to paste it here. So from position 55 to the end. Yeah. So now when I run this, again, it displays pleasant. Cool. Now, let's move on to the next part of section 5.4, which is the upper function, lower, and the replace function. So this is actually pretty simple. So task 1 is to convert the variable word2 to uppercase. So if I print word2, just like that, it displays the word success in lowercase, that is in all small letters or characters. But if you want to convert this into uppercase, you write dot upper, just like that. So apply the function upper to word2. You run that and success becomes success in uppercase or capital letters. And obviously you must have guessed it by now, to convert word3 to lowercase, you would simply print the name of the variable, that is word3 dot lower. Yeah, word3 is success in all caps or in uppercase. And when you run that, it becomes lowercase. At the same time, if we take a look at task 3, you'll see that task 3 asks us to replace the name of the boy in the variable sentence 2 from Morty to Peter. So what's the sentence here? So the variable sentence 2 has stored the string, there's a boy, his name is Morty. And you want to actually change this name Morty to the name Peter. To do this, what you're going to do is you're simply going to print sentence 2. Yeah, that's the name of the variable in which this sentence is stored. Dot replace. Oh, I think I made a small mistake. So you really don't want to use the replace function like this. You simply want to use the replace function as it is right here. So I think I made another mistake. It's actually sentence 2 dot replace. I'm basically coding in many different programming languages, so I keep mixing them up a little bit. Yeah, so sentence 2 dot replace. And what do you want to replace? You want to replace Morty with Peter. Yeah, so you want to replace the string Morty with the string Peter. And now when you click on run, it says there is a boy, his name is Peter. Yeah, so we see how the Morty was replaced with Peter. Awesome. Now let's move on to the next section, which is booleans. Now here you can see that we've got 4 variables again, that is A, B, C, and D. Let's take a look at what these variables are doing, and let's move on to the tasks so that we can actually understand what are these booleans. So first off, you need to know that booleans have only 2 types of values, that are true and false. And these true and false basically mean what we really understand them as in the real world. When something's true, it's actually there, it's actually happening, or it's like a green signal. Or when something is false, it's not there, or it is wrong, or it's a red signal. Yeah, so let's take a look at the tasks. So design and print the output for conditions according to their descriptions given below. The first one is task 1. It says 10 is greater than or equal to 20. So we basically want to display the condition 10 is greater than or equal to 20. So how are we going to do this? We're going to print the number 10. Okay, so you want to print out the number 10. Then you want to write the condition that this number 10 is greater than or equal to 20. So you write 10 is greater than or equal to 20, just like that. And this is how you create conditions in Python. You're going to use the greater than symbol, you're going to use the equal to symbol, and that becomes greater than or equal to. Now you tell me if this is actually true or is it false. Is 10 actually greater than or is it equal to 20? It's not. 10 is actually less than 20. So when I run this, this gives me a value false. So it prints out the value false, or the Boolean value false. Yeah. Moving ahead, let's take a look at the next one. Task 2 is create the condition 20 is greater than or equal to 10. Let's take a look at this. So print 20 is greater than or equal to 10. Now, when you print out 20 is greater than or equal to 10, what happens is the program checks the number 20. All right, there's a number 20. Then the condition here is 20 greater than or equal to 10? Yes, 20 is greater than 10, but it is not equal to 10. But at least one of these conditions is correct. Yeah, so 20 is greater than 10. So the condition 20 is greater than or equal to 10 should give us the value true, and that is what it does. Moving ahead to task 3, you need to create the condition 10 is not greater than or equal to 20. So let me print 10 is not greater than or equal to 20. All right. So in this case in Python, what you'll do is you'll use the not keyword. So not 10 greater than, so not 10. So 10 is not greater than or equal to 20. Yeah. So not 10 is greater than or equal to 20. And now when I run this, it gives me true because 10 is actually not greater than or equal to 20. That's perfect. Now let's print out the next one, which is 10 plus 20 is equal to 30. All right. So how do you check if two things are equal in Python, right? First off, let's write 10 plus 20. Now, to check if two things are equal, we use the double equal to operator. Yeah. So what this means is that you're checking if the answer of this operation, this mathematical operation, 10 plus 20 is actually equal to the value 30. So it's basically like the computer asking, is 10 plus 20 actually equal to 30? Is that true or false? So when we click on run and find out, it says that that is true because 10 plus 20, which is 30, is actually equal to 30. And you can do the same thing with strings. So if I, print something like is Yash equal to Yash and I run this, it should say true. Yeah, because both of these strings are equal. But if I make this a lowercase y and I run it, it says false, right? So Python is case sensitive. So Yash with a lowercase y is not actually equal to Yash with an uppercase y. Let's move ahead to task 5. So task 5 asks us to check if 20 minus 10 is equal to 10 and 30 divided by 3 is equal to 10. So there are two conditions that you want to compare. So here we print out 20 minus 10. So is 20 minus 10 equal to 10, equal to 10, and is 30 divided by 3 equal to 10. So this is how you write it as. This is your first condition and this is your second condition, and then you're using the AND keyword to compare these two conditions. So let me just put this in brackets so that it's separated, put this in brackets so that this is separated, and now we can read it as is 20 minus 10 actually equal to 10 and is 30 divided by 3 actually equal to 10. So how is this going to be calculated in Python? So 20 minus 10 is 10. Is 10 equal to 10? Yes. So this is true. And 30 divided by 3, this is 10. Is that equal to 10? This is also true. So you got true and true. And when you have a true and true on either side of the AND keyword, the answer is always going to be true. Yeah. But at the same time, if I print something like false and false, it gives me false. If I print something like false and true, so let's just imagine that these are two conditions, right? So this thing gives us true. Let's say this thing gave us false. So false and true, and we run that. Again, that gives us false. So what you need to know that two conditions need to be true for the final answer to be true when you use the AND keyword. Yeah. Let's move on to task number 6. In this case, we are asked to create a condition 50 divided by 5 is equal to 10 and 70 divided by 10 is not equal to 10. So let's take this step by step. I'm just going to print out 50 divided by 5 is equal to 10 and 70 divided by 10 is not equal to 10. So I could basically say not 70 divided by 10 is equal to 10. And now this means that your computer is checking if 50 divided by 5 is actually equal to 10 and is 70 divided by 10 actually not equal to 10. Yeah, and if you see there's an and keyword here. So if both of these are true, then your final answer is going to be true. If even one of these is false, then your final answer is going to be false. So let's just put both of these into brackets and separate them once. Yep, just like that. And when we run that, it says true. Why does it say true? It says true because 50 divided by 5 is 10 and 10 is actually equal to 10. So the answer for this whole condition is true. Then 70 divided by 10 is, well, 7 and 7 is actually not equal to 10. So this condition is also true. It is correct that 7 is not equal to 10 or 70 divided by 10 is not equal to 10. So there's true and true. So your final answer is true. Finally, you've got task 5, which says you need to create a condition which says the string this is not equal to the string that. So we simply want to print within double quotes this, that, and it says not equal to. So what this condition that we've written right now says is this equals that. But what we want to say is this is not equal to that. So not this equals that. And now when I run this, it says true because this, the string this is actually not equal to that. So that is true. Finally, guys, let's take a look at conditionals in Python. This is our second last topic for this video. So we're almost done and you're pretty far away in Python now. So congratulations for that. Now, conditionals in Python basically allow your program to take some kind of a decision. It's like giving your program a little bit of life. It's like giving your program some decision-making power. So the syntax or the rules to write conditionals in Python is as follows. You write the keyword if followed by a certain condition. Yeah, this condition looks somewhat like these. Yeah, this one or this one. So this condition is just a Boolean condition that you saw above earlier. Now, if this condition returns a true value, only then will this code be executed. All right. And if it does return a true value, then all of this will be skipped and it won't be executed anymore. But if this condition is false, then your program control will directly shift to the elif block. So elif is basically short for else if. So if this condition is false, then you go to this particular else if block. Else if this condition is true, then you execute this block of code and skip this code. But else if this condition is false, then you directly move on to the else block. So there are three kinds of blocks in this syntax. There is a if block which takes a condition, there is an elif block which takes a condition, and finally there's an else block which does not take a condition. You need to know that you can have as many elif blocks as you want in your conditionals structure or construct. But you can have only one else for each if. All right. Now, you cannot have an else without an if. So let me show you all of this. Let's see how to actually make this whole thing work. So the task is to write a program in Python to display the largest of three numbers and use the input function. So there's a couple of things that we've not seen here. Yeah, we've not seen the if else construct and we've not taken a look at the input function. So up until now, you were taking variables like, let's say, age and making it equal to a certain value. Now what we'll do is we'll ask the user for some kind of input using the input function. So to do that, let's create a variable called, let's say, name equals, and you're going to make this equal to the input function. Now, inside the parentheses of the input function, since input is a function, you're going to have parentheses, and inside the parentheses, you're going to ask the user a question, which is going to be of a type string, right? So within double quotes, you say, kindly enter your name. Yeah, just like that. And then let's print, you entered, comma, name, just the way we saw at the top. So when we run this, it asks us, kindly enter your name. So I'm just going to type Yash, and I'm going to press enter. And as soon as I press enter, it says you entered Yash. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So basically what happens is that the input function allows us to take some kind of an input, some kind of values from the user and store it inside a variable. So in this case, I typed Yash, and as soon as I pressed enter, the string Yash was stored inside name. Similarly, if I create a variable age and make it equal to input, kindly enter your age, and then I print you entered, comma, age. And when I run this, and I write 23, oops, not there, but here, 23, and I press enter, it says you entered 23. Yeah. But the question is this 23 a string or is this an integer? Let's find out using the type function. So print type of age. And now when I run it, you can see that, let me just type 23 again, that the 23 belongs to the class str, or it is a string. So if 23 is a string, that means that to do any kind of mathematical operation or computation with it or calculation with it, I need to convert this string into an integer using typecasting. So to do that, I could either typecast it like this, age equals int of age, just like that. And when I run it, this string becomes an int. So let me type 23, and now it becomes an int. So now it's ready for mathematical computation. Alternatively, what I can do is I can actually just wrap this whole input with an int typecast. So now when I run this, and okay, let me run this. And when I type, let's say 23 and press enter, it's directly going to take 23 as an integer, because you're saying that, all right, take an input, but make that an integer. But in this case, if I write something like here, Yash here, which is a string, and I press enter, it gives me an error. It says value error, invalid literal for an int typecast. Yeah. So Yash is not an integer. So that's why Python throws this error. Yeah. So now you know how to use input. In this case, you can see that we want to accept 3 values from the user. And then after that, you want to compare these 3 values and finally print out which is the largest value. So let's take a look at that. Let's take 3 variables. A equals input. Kindly enter the value for A. We just copy this for B and C. So B equals input, kindly enter the value for B, and C equals input, kindly enter the value for C. So now when I run this, it first asks me, kindly enter the value for A, all right, 10. Kindly enter the value for B, 20, and kindly enter the value for C, 30. Perfect. We've entered the values 10, 20, and 30 and stored them in A, B, and C respectively. Now what we want to do is we want to use this if-else construct, this whole if-else conditionals construct, to decide which is the largest value of these 3. So let's see how to do that. First, we write if A is greater than B. Yeah, so if A is greater than B and A is greater than C. Yeah, then, so there's this colon, and you press enter. So what you need to observe here is when I press enter, I have this yellow thing right here. You might not have this because this requires another plugin to be installed. We take a look at that in another video. But right now you need to know that this is about 4 spaces. So if I don't have this space, yeah, my program really won't work correctly. So to define that the code that I'm about to write belongs to this if block, I need this yellow indentation. So to get this yellow indentation from the beginning, I simply need to press my space bar 4 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the right indentation. Or an easier way would be that from the starting you would just press tab and then you got 4 spaces. So this is your indentation, and now whatever you write with this space right here, whatever code that you write here is going to belong to this if block. So let's take a look at how that works out. Okay, so I've pressed enter and PyCharm has automatically given me this indentation. Now, what I want to do is I simply want to print here that if the condition A is greater than B and the condition A is greater than C is true, then I want to print str of A plus is the greatest number. Yes, let's just run this code and see if it works. I'm running it. Let's make A 50, then B 10 and C 30. So now it says 50 is the greatest number. All right, that works out. That's great. Let's move ahead and take a look at the next one. We're going to be Now what we're going to be doing is we write elif B is greater than A and B is greater than C. So now we are coding for B and we're checking if B is greater than the value stored inside variable A and B is greater than the value stored inside variable B, inside variable C. So let's print out in this case str of B is the greatest number. Yeah. And finally, if A and B aren't the greatest, then C should be the greatest, right? But what if all of them are actually equal? So I think we should write elif C is greater than A and C is greater than B, then print str of C is the greatest number. Now that you've handled whether A is greater or B is greater or C is greater or the greatest, you just have one last condition to handle, which is if all of these are equal. So if none of them are greater than each other or smaller than each other, then else print they are all equal. Yeah, that's it. So let's run this program and check it out. So I'm just going to enter the value for A, 1, B is 2 and C is 3. I press enter and now it says 3 is the greatest number. Perfect, works correctly. Next, let's run A is 10, B is 20, B is 60 and C is 10 again. So now it says 60 is the greatest number. Perfect. Let's run it again. And let's check if a program works correctly when all of them are equal. So 10, 10 and 10 and it says they are all equal. So that is perfect. That's perfect kind of code that we've written right here. Now that we've written all of this here, guys, you can see that if this condition is true, only then will this line be executed. If elif this condition is true, only then will this line be executed. Elif this condition is true, only this line will be executed. And if all of these three conditions are false, then the else block will be executed. So this is how you work with if-else statements. And if-else statements are super important with respect to programming because they are very, very extensively used in the real world. In fact, all of these concepts that you've just learned in the past hour are extremely useful in the real world, and this is a very good kickstart to your programming journey. So congrats on that. If you have any questions on the if-else part, you can definitely drop that in the comments or in the Q&A section, and I'll be more than happy to answer all of those questions. Finally, let's move to the loop section. And for the loop section, again, we're going to be moving to the GoodNotes app in order to understand the concept first, after which we'll be coding loops.
Alright guys, so we're back in Good Notes and we're here to understand the concept behind loops in Python. So loops in Python are simply used to repeat some kind of code. Now loops have four main parts. The first part is the control variable. Now with the name control variable, you already know that this variable controls the loop in a certain way. So let's take a look at how does it control the loop. The value of the control variable basically helps you decide how many number of times does the loop repeat itself. Yeah. So for example, if you have a control variable I and you want that I to be equal to 0 to start with, and you want this loop to run about 4 times. So you would want to run the loop until the value of I goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 and to 4. So that's a total of 5 counts. Yes, because 0 is also counted as an iteration. So that's a total of 5 counts. This is how the control variable controls the repetition or the life of a loop. Moving ahead, let's talk about the second part, which is the looping condition. Now, the looping condition is basically a Boolean condition. It's basically like the ones that we saw while doing if-else. Now, this Boolean condition, it's a Boolean condition that controls the number of times the loop repeats itself depending upon the control variable or the value of the control variable. So let's see how does that work out. Let's say you've got a control variable again, I equals 0, and you've got a looping condition, I is less than 5. This means that the loop will keep repeating itself till the value of I is either equal to or greater than 5. So, as long as this condition is true, your loop will repeat itself. But as soon as it is false, it will stop or the loop will terminate. Let's take a look at how does that work out. Now, let's say I is the value of I, which is your control variable, they range from 0 to 5, so 0 to 4. So let's say I becomes 0, I is 0, then I is 1, then I equals 2, then I equals 3, and then I equals 4. So for all of these values, the looping condition is true. That means that for every value of I that you see on the screen right now, the loop will repeat itself, which is 5 times. As soon as the value of I becomes 5, the loop stops. Why does it stop? It stops because this condition is no more satisfied. That is because I is equal to 5 and it is not less than 5 anymore. So this condition becomes false and your loop terminates. Yeah. Now, let's move ahead and understand this in a much more detailed manner. So, the third part of your loop is called the body of the loop. Now, the body of the loop is pretty simple. It is basically the block of code or the lines of code that you want to repeat at each iteration or repetition of the loop. Finally, you've got the update statement. So, the update statement is basically a statement that you use. It's a mathematical expression that you use to increase or decrease the value of your control variable. So the update statement increases and decreases the value of your control variable at each loop or at each repetition of the loop. Let's take a look at that. Once again, let's take an example. So let's say your control variable I is equal to 0. Your looping condition is I is less than 5. Yeah. And your update statement is, well, I equals I plus 1. Okay, and the body of your loop is simply print the value of I. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just write O/P, which is output, and we'll take a look at how does this work out. Now, you've got a variable I. In the first iteration, the value of I is 0. Then what happens is, your program checks if I is less than 5. Now that condition is true because 0 is less than 5, is in fact less than 5. So what happens is your program prints I. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to print the value of I right here, which is 0. Next, what happens is your program
updates the value of the variable I by one number, which is the new value of I equals the old value of I plus 1. So what's the old value of I? The old value of I is 0 right here. So what's 0 plus 1? 0 plus 1 is 1. So new value of I is 1, and then your loop goes back to the looping condition. Now, after going back to the looping condition, it again checks if the condition is true. Now, yes, the condition is true because the value stored inside variable I currently is the number 1. So what happens is, since it is true, again you go to the body of the loop, which is print I. So if you want to print I, you simply print 1 because the current value of I is 1. And once you've again printed the current value of I, you go down to the update statement. And once you go down to the update statement, you increment or increase the value of I by 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So now the new value of I is equal to 2. You go back to the condition right here. You check if the new value of I is less than 5 or if it satisfies the condition. In this case, it does satisfy the condition, and since it does satisfy the condition, that means that we're going to be printing 2 again, and then the loop goes in again and updates the value of I. So 2 plus 1 becomes 3. Then again, obviously 3 is less than 5, so you print out 3. Then 3 plus 1 becomes 4. 4 is again less than 5. The looping condition is still true. You print out I, which is 4. Then 4 plus 1 becomes 5. And now when you go to your looping condition, your program's like, okay, 4 is not less than 5. So this condition is now false. And since that is false, your final output is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like this. So what did we learn from here? We didn't just learn how does a loop work, but we also learned that the steps go as follows. First, your control variable is created. Then your looping condition is defined. Then you write the body of your loop. After you write the body of your loop, you basically write the update statement, which is step 4. And then after updating the control variable in the update statement, your loop goes back to step number 2, just like that. And this is where your loop is basically formed. So let's just take a look at this in PyCharm and actually implement this practically. Alright guys, so we're back in PyCharm and we're going to be looking at the loops concept in a more practical way and coding some loops. So we saw a couple of examples during our conceptual session just before this section in the video, and we saw an example wherein we were repeating a loop 5 times. Now, before we get into that, you need to know that Python has 2 types of loops. The first type of loop is called the while loop, and the while loop essentially does almost the same things as the other type of loop, which is called the for loop, but it's just that they're used in many different use cases, and one loop is just preferred over the other in certain places. You'll obviously get to know all of that in time when you code more and you try to do more projects in Python. But as of now, we'll be taking some simple examples just to understand the concept of loops and actually put it into practice. So the first thing is, let's take a look at the syntax, because the syntax is very, very important when you're taking a look at loops. So in the syntax of the while loop, the first thing you do is you create your control variable. So let's say I write my control variable I is equal to 0. So obviously this is a comment, so we're not going to execute this code. We're just going to understand the syntax here. So here I is equal to 0 is our control variable. Then we write the keyword while, and then we write the looping condition. So if you remember, this is the Boolean condition. For example, I is less than 5 or I is less than 10. So while this condition is true, you want these lines of code to be repeated. So this is the body of your loop. And finally, you want the value of this control variable to be updated here so that at some point in time, this looping condition becomes false and your loop terminates. Let's take a look at it. Task 1 is to display the number sequence given in the comment below. So we want to display the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So how are we going to display this number sequence? Let's take a look at it. Let's think about it. So you want your loop to start with displaying 1, and at each repetition you want to add the number 1 to it, so that it goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. So let's create a control variable which has a value 0. So which has a value 1, because obviously if you're starting with printing 1, it's more convenient to just take your control variable to be 1. Now, if I is equal to 1, then you want this loop to go from I is equal to 1, I is equal to 2, I is equal to 3, I is equal to 4, and finally I is equal to 5. And when I becomes 6, you want it to stop. So basically, you want this loop to stop, or you want this loop to go on until or while I is less than 6. So until the value of I is less than 6, you want this loop to go on, and you want to print the value of I. Make sure that you're leaving the same indentation that we saw in the if-else section of this video. Now, after you've printed I, what you want to do is you simply want to update the control variable. So to do that, you're going to take the old value, the new value of I, make that equal to the old value of I, and increment it or increase it by the number 1. So now let's run this and see what happens. When I run this, this is from some of our previous programs. Yep. All right, perfect. So you can see that it prints out 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5. So what's happening is I equals 1. So that's the first loop. Then you run I is equal to I plus 1. So I equals 2. So when I is equal to 2, I is still less than 6. So that's why it also prints out 2. Then when I is equal to 3, it is again less than 6. So the looping condition is still true. So it prints out 3. Then I becomes 4. The looping condition is still true. It prints out 4. And finally, when I is equal to 5, the looping condition is still true, and it prints out 5 right here on the step. But when I is equal to 5, it also increments the value of I by the number 1, which makes I 6. And when the value of I becomes 6 and it goes to the looping condition becomes false and your loop terminates, and therefore your program also terminates and gives you the feedback that says process finished with exit code 0. Perfect. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example. So you want to display all even numbers between 0 to 10 inclusive using the while loop. Okay, so let's follow all the steps that we've learned so far. So first off, you want to display all even numbers from 0 to 10, and you want them to be inclusive. So 0 and 10 need to be included. And just remember that in programming, 0 is considered as an even number and not a neutral number. So we're going to take I equals 0 because we want our loop to start from 0. We want to display 0 at some point in time, or we want the value of I to reach 0 at one point in time. Then the looping condition, right? You want a 0 and 10 inclusive. So if we count from 0 to 10, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That is a total of 11 counts. Yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Correct? So what we want to do is, since we want the value 10 to be included, our condition should be while the value of I is less than 11. And when we use this condition, that means that if we increment or increase the value of 0 by 1, it's still going to reach the value 10 at some point, and we will be able to get the desired output. So first off, let's just take this program step by step. What I'm going to do here is I'm simply going to print the value of I, and I'll increase the value of I by 1 at each iteration. As soon as I run this, we've again got our previous programs troubling us, which is all right. Yeah. So now you can see that we've got the output here, but it's a little confusing. So let me just put a small print statement, which is just a dash, and I want this dash to be displayed 20 times on the same line. So you multiply that by 20. All right. And Cool. So this is where our next program starts. Awesome. So now if you take a look at this, we are able to run our loop for a total of 11 times, that is from I equal to 0 to I equal to 10. Now we simply need to put a condition here, an if else condition here, such that the print I statement is basically executed only when the value of I is an even number. And we know that an even number is a number which is divisible by 2. So let's write that. If the value of I is divisible by 2, so this modulus sign or the percentage sign, as we all very famously know it or commonly know it basically allows you to find the remainder of some kind of a division. So in this case, if I divided by 2 gives a remainder of 0, which means that it is divisible by 2 and it is an even number. So if I divided by 2 equal to 0, if the remainder is 0, then you want to print I. So I pressed tab again to take care of the indentation so that I can tell Python that this print statement belongs to this if block. Finally, I can just else do nothing. So to do nothing, I can just write pass. Yeah, this basically means do nothing. And after my whole if else construct on the indentation of the while loop right here, I'm going to have my update statement. So when I run this, and I'm again being troubled by our previous program, yeah, you can see that it prints out 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, which is what we exactly wanted right here in the example output. These are all the even numbers between 0 to 10, 0 and 10 inclusive. If you have any questions about this, you can put them in the comments. I'll definitely be releasing some more videos about the for loop and the while loop separately, because these are concepts that students usually struggle with. So don't worry about it. Just make sure you're following the channel so that you are up to date with all the videos that we're posting. Now let's take a look at the for loop. So just like the while loop, for loop also has a certain syntax, and it's just different with respect to how it's written, but it pretty much does the same job. So in the for loop, what you do is you write the keyword for, then you have your control variable, and in this case, you specify a range of values for your control variable. So you're saying that for this control variable is in the range of a starting value to a stopping value. You basically want to repeat these lines of code. So here, this is the body of the loop. So let's just take a look at displaying the number sequence given below, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 using the for loop. So I'm just going to write for my control variable I in range, and the starting value is going to be 1 and my stopping value should be 5 because I want to go from 1 to 5, right? And then I put a colon, press enter, again have that same indentation right here, can be achieved by or can be gotten here by just pressing the tab button. And then you simply want to print out the value of I. Here you do not need any update statement as such, because the for loop is going to use this range of values for I by default. So when I run this, again, I have this program troubling us. Okay. I think we need to put another print statement here that separates the for loop. Okay, for loop. Alright, we'll just keep it like that. And run that again. We write here 1, 2, 3. And yeah, now you can see that our for loop displays 1, 2, 3, and 4. It does not display the 5. Why do you think does it not display the 5? Well, it does not display the 5 because the for loop does not consider this stopping value. You always need to put one value above the stopping value. So when you run this again and you take a look at it, when we put the stopping value as one value above where we want to stop, or one value higher than where we want to stop, it gives us our desired output, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that is about the basics of the for loop. Let's take a look at how can we display all even numbers between 0 to 10 10 inclusive, 0 and 10 inclusive using the for loop, just like we did in the while loop. So there are basically two ways of doing this. The first method is by using the mod2 condition. So that's pretty easy. You're just going to write for I in range 0, 11, because if you remember in the previous for loop, if you want to go up until 5, in this case 10, you need to take one stopping limit higher, or one stopping range higher. And then you want to check if the value of I, a mod 2, equals 0, then you want to print I. Else you want to do nothing. So it's okay if you don't write an else statement. And if I run this, 1, 2, and 3, yeah, I do get the output, which is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So we haven't put the separation here. So we could just do that. Print this multiplied by 20 so that we just get 20 dashes and it looks good. All right, but here, oops, I pressed the wrong thing. Yeah, cool. We should run this again. Stop and rerun. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Now you can see that we've gotten our even numbers right here. And well, our for loop has successfully shown us all the even numbers. Finally, let's take a look at method 2. So I'm just going to print method 2 this time. Method 2, and then I'll print our hyphens as well. Yeah. And now what we want to do here is do the same thing but with a different kind of code without using the mod2 condition. So how can we do this without using the mod2 condition? It's pretty simple actually. So for I in range 0 to 11, but what I did not tell you is that the range function has another property, which is a step. So as of now, by default, you're going to take a step of 1. So it goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 and so on to 11. But if I put another comma and write that I want to step 2, which is a +2 step, and then I print I without the mod2 condition, you'll see that our program takes 2 steps always. So in the method 2, you can see there's 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, just because we put a step value here of +2. So guys, this is basically how you write very basic programs using the while loop and the for loop. Again, I will be uploading some videos explaining the while loop and the for loop in much more detail so that you can solve much more complex problems and also understand the concept thoroughly. If you have any questions, you can definitely comment and obviously give your feedback on the whole video. This is basically the end of our 1 hour Python session. It might have been shot up by a little bit, but I guess that's fine because at the end of the day, you've actually learned a lot of concepts in Python and you can now start learning the language independently. You can start reading documentation and actually understand what's written. So congrats on reaching this part of the video, and I hope to see you as one of our subscribers, and make sure that you comment your thoughts about this video. Like this video, share it with your friends so that they can also learn about Python and get started with it, because it's a beautiful language and it's one of the hottest language of the 21st century. And I will see you in the next one.